Let us discuss about 30th July 2015 newspaper. Now I am starting with one most important article. This is the most important thing according to me for the interview. For example, if they ask you, what is the legacy of the Kalam, or what are the major contributions of the Kalam to India? In that particular case, many people tries to enumerate what he has did scientifically and what he tried to give as President of India, such as as a scientific advisor to the Defense Minister Pokhran. He might have given to us the missile, integrated guided missile system. But however, more than that, his legacy belongs to what he gave to the humanity, the young generation of the people of India. So with regard to this, he made the people to dream big. And he is a synthesis of the aspirational India. If Gandhiji is been known to build a nationalism which is made up of divergent people, divergent cultures, and multiple religions, which is against to the colonial life, Kalam made the same people to dream and aspire, to emphasize for the better growth and livelihood to the people. So it means the Kalam's legacy is all about making every child, irrespective of his birth and irrespective of his upper status, making him to dream and take up the opportunities of the growth and the development which are available to him. And the second thing is on political front. Today, the politics became synonymous with lust for power without any purpose. He has redefined the politics again towards a particular purpose, that is towards making the people to realize the value of politics, where the people come central to it. So a politics with purpose. If you remember the Gandhiji's greatest sins, lack of politics with purpose, so that particular thing was got redefined because of the Abdul Kalam. So, and also Abdul Kalam represents the multicultural, multi-religious, multi-divergent India. A Hindu, a Muslim, everyone you can see in Abdul Kalam and his value system. So these are the contributions of the Abdul Kalam beyond his scientific contributions and also contributions as President of India. Now the thing is, our foreign policy, if you see the Modi's foreign policy recently, our foreign secretary made a statement or made an emphasis that our foreign policy is taking a recourse now. Let us examine to what extent it is does. So now, the first statement he said is, the foreign policy is filled with greater confidence, more initiative, and certainly the stronger determination. So these are the three words which are being used by Mr. Jaishankar. That is greater confidence, more initiative, certainly stronger determination. Let us examine to what extent they are true. Now if you see, the policy is described as neighborhood first policy, and next is look east is reconstrained as act east policy, etc. So if you take the neighborhood, other than Bangladesh, there are no significant improvement in relations with any other country. Indeed, they became worse with Afghanistan. With regard to the Pakistan, the same ambivalent position, either to engage or not to engage. If engaged, to what extent do we have to engage with Pakistan? This ambivalent thinking still continues into the diplomatic circles. On the other hand, India is still going through the traditional ideological mentality with regard to the Afghanistan, especially the Taliban and the Afghan reapproachment process. India wants to have a Afghanistan-led process clearly defined by the international red lines. Now, in spite of it, US, China and Russia being supporting this particular talks between Taliban and Afghanistan, India more appearing as an outnumbered or else outcasted in this particular stand. And the second thing is, The second major statement which was made by the Foreign Secretary is there is an emphasis on exchange of information and coastal surveillance, building of infrastructure and strengthening of the capabilities. So he was majorly talking about collaborative functioning of the Indian diplomacy towards engaging with multiple countries and developing the connectivity with these countries and enhancing the capabilities through these connectivities. This is what he talked about. In this context, let us understand to what extent India is improving its connectivities. The first thing is, yes, India did not react properly or did not disclose what exactly is its position to the One Belt, One Road initiative of China till date. And second, America is actively promoting regional blocs, and India did not define its stand and its scope of action with regard to growing these regional blocs. On the other hand, whatever the initiatives the existing government is continuing, they are nothing but the continuation of the past. If you talk about in Seychelles, the recent agreement which was signed during Modi visit, that is Maritime Domain Awareness Systems, these are conceptualized during the UPA itself. On the other hand, many of the neighboring countries, they are not taking India into credibility or confidence with regard to the assurances it gave. It is majorly due to excessive red tapeism and delays in the projects India has promised to them. If you see Nepal or Bhutan, India has taken up many projects, but most of them are caught in the bureaucratic crosshairs. That's why the credibility of our promises and credible gap is increasing with our neighbors. So in this context, our foreign policy is more filled with words rather than content is the essence of this article. But if you ask to me, a sense of purpose and urgency has come into our External Affairs Department after Mr. Modi has taken over as the Prime Minister. And second thing is on positive side, his active visits to various countries, East Asia, Central Asia and South Asia, has increased our scope of engagement and also built the personal relationship between the leaders. But however, understand, a diplomacy in essence is a conduct of these engagements or these agreements. So the personal leadership and personal bonding among the leaderships will not ultimately may convert into the fruits of the diplomacy. But however, yes, the engagement of India with various regions of the country has got deepened and a sense of urgency we can see in the foreign affairs in India. And the next is a coherent response. Now in UFA, India and Pakistan started their engagement. In this context, the recent terrorist attack is seen as a derailment of this particular process. Now, there are terrorist elements which are not interested in the constructive engagement between these two nations. So in this context, the UFA talks may be derailed, but however, if India disengages because of this terror element or shows a knee-jerk reaction, ultimately it appears as playing into the terrorist hands directly. So Pakistan as a country, we have to deal with a dual policy where we have to expose its deeds to the international community, and at the same time we shall continue our talks on a positive front with Pakistan. So we can clearly say that we have to deal with the Pakistan with an iron fist in a velvet glove. So with a firmness in our stand, but softness in our approach. That is how we have to deal with the Pakistan with regard to its dual stance on the terrorism in the international fronts. And Mullah Omar's death, it has a significant impact with regard to the growing Afghanistan and Taliban attacks. The Pakistan is facilitating these talks. The Murree talks are such an example. So in this context, lack of a centrality of a leadership among the Taliban is a factor that is going to derail the entire peace process. So in this context, the Mullah Umar represented the centrality of the Taliban leadership, and his death probably is going to bring in multiple factions in the Taliban. And the danger over here is the Taliban united is dangerous. Taliban divided is much danger, because Islamic State is trying to use these elements of the Taliban into its cadres and penetrate into South Asia. And next is the emission targets. The Paris conference has to declare the emission targets for each country in this INDCs, that is intended nationally determined contributions. This is what is the strategy. So already European has declared its intended nationally determined contributions. That is by 2030, it wanted to reduce its emission targets of 40% of the 1990 levels. And India has its own challenges to shift itself into a low carbon economy. So in this context, India did not agree for any such things. And India wants to reduce it by 25% of the energy intensity, that is amount of energy necessary for 1% of GDP growth. But however, India officially did not declare it at. So the India to move towards a low carbon economy, we shall have a liberal financing and technology transfers from the West. So now with regard to the human trafficking, the human trafficking is changing into different forms, and it is forming the basis for the illicit economy to survive. Now in this context, previously it was taken the form of a forcible labor. Now it is taking the form of child trafficking and also illegal adoptions involving the children in armed conflicts, etc. So in this context, though India is a signatory of a protocol, that is Palermo Protocol, there are no concrete steps which are being taken up by India in checking this illegal trafficking. On the other hand, the policy side, there is no proper rehabilitation facilities who are being rescued from this illegal trafficking. In this context, a strong laws and controlling the vacuums in the policies, and also effective implementation with rehabilitation process that can improve the situation in illegal trafficking in India. In this context, try to understand about recent the US government's report on trafficking, and also global slavery index, etc., where we can get the relative status of the trafficking across the countries. So thank you very much.